Right now is honestly a hectic time. I won't go into detail apart from to say that America is undergoing some temporary changes, which result in quarantine, self isolation, and social distancing. For a lot of people, that isn't very appealing, and we don't really know how long it will last as of right now. After careful consideration, I have decided to avoid discussing current events and politics during this time frame. I often branch out from gaming to other subjects, but for the time being, I will deliberately stick to just video game related topics because the media cycle and social atmosphere is undoubtedly going to become fatiguing. A lot of people will be, and already are probably, sick of hearing about the problems, sick of being warned against this or that or the other thing, sick of the media fear-mongering especially, and sick of the constant barrage when it comes to new developments, scientific claims, and policy decisions, both foreign and domestic. It's a depressing atmosphere, it truly is, and rather than jump on board with that, I will focus on video game topics alone, as if none of it is even happening around us, because if anything, the world of online video games will be even more popular during this time frame. With all that said, let's get started. I love Nioh 2. I absolutely love this game. However, this is not a full review, this is an impressions video. The only real difference is that I have not beaten all the bosses yet or completed the story, and thus I really shouldn't call it a review, seeing as that would be IGN levels of incompetence right there. However, I know enough about the mechanics, the combat, the story, the boss fights, and the format overall to know definitively that I love this game and it is incredibly well made. I should preface this by admitting I have very little experience with the original Nioh, though I almost believe this to be a benefit to certain viewers because they might be in the same boat as well. The truth is, a lot of players join a game franchise after the first successful iteration, and the same holds true here with Nioh 2. I don't have concrete player statistics on the table in front of me, but anecdotally, I felt like a lot of the livestream questions revolved around whether or not do I have to have played the first Nioh to enjoy this one. That type of deal. And the answer is no. For those who are familiar with the first game, it's not an evolution on the format that will come across as unfamiliar, but it certainly has some new mechanics. I won't speak directly to what has changed and what hasn't, it's really not my place to do so, seeing as the bulk of my Nioh 1 knowledge is researched rather than played or experienced myself, but it shouldn't even matter because Nioh 2 is so incredibly deep, I cannot picture anyone reasonably interested getting bored with it. The meat of this game, without question, is the combat and boss encounters. The combat is most notably compared to Dark Souls, but it's a tired comparison nowadays, honestly. Every time a game is difficult, people go, it's just like Dark Souls, even though that can be a completely inaccurate parallel to draw, but this time that comparison does hold true in a meaningful way. However, the pacing here is completely different. To start with, picture a weapon format like Monster Hunter World. For those that aren't familiar, Monster Hunter has a system in which various weapons drastically change the entire experience. Short of simply offering a damage increase at the cost of speed, which is pretty normal in a lot of games right now, Nioh 2 has 9 different weapon types, each of which has heavy and light attack combos for each of 3 different stances. These weapons fundamentally change how you play, and personally I found myself almost exclusively using the dual swords because I fell in love with their playstyle. That's another reason why this isn't a full review. I tried other weapons out, yes, but not in any extensive way where I would then complete several missions with them. Because of how different they are, how stat allocation scales each of them separately, and how the strengths and weaknesses are decidedly unique, I will need to do some extensive further testing before feeling justified in making a completed review video. But knowing what the mechanics are, having played a couple of these weapons enough to feel comfortable, and having also seen the depth of the others as well, I can clearly tell that there is an incredible system here, which expands on the idea of simply tying damage to attack speed. This is where the pacing comes into play. Nioh 2 has a couple of different realm states. The first is normal, where combat takes place as one would expect, and the second is the yokai realm. Apologies if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. The yokai realm has a sapping effect on stamina regeneration, also called ki in this instance, but a beneficial effect on anima. Anima is a resource that allows you to transform into a powerful demon form, though demon might be the wrong word. You get the point though. Not only that, but it seems certain enemies have different attacks or abilities in the yokai realm that they do not possess in the normal world. Anima is also the primary resource for a few other mechanics such as yokai skills and the most important one, burst counters. Yokai skills are gained from yokai cores, which are gained from defeating enemies, especially powerful ones, though it's not just bosses, there is a chance to get the cores from other standard enemies as well. Yokai cores can be purified at a shrine and then slotted for use in your ability set, and they also give you stats. They give you access to devastating and unique attacks that draw from your anima bar. Then there are burst counters. Burst counters are an absolutely brilliant element in this game. Effectively, a burst counter is like a perfect parry in many other titles where it deals damage, depletes an enemy's stamina, and opens them up for a counterattack. However, it's not quite that easy to compare because burst counters only become available when the enemy is about to do a devastating red aura attack. These red aura attacks are brutal, but the opportunity for a burst counter is fantastic, which means over the course of a fight, you will go from being afraid of these red aura combos to relishing the opportunity when they do happen. The things that hurt you most become an opportunity for the best offensive counters, and to demonstrate this, I'm going to show an early boss fight side by side. The left screen is one of the first times I fought the boss, the very first times, and the right screen is a few tries later when I knew what I was doing. The basic formula is still pattern recognition to its core and subsequent damage at the right times after the enemy has done a combo or whatever it is, but the pacing is such that this rudimentary formula feels refreshing and exciting. On top of that, bosses will pull you in and out of the yokai realm as their stamina gets depleted. This means that you need to change your playstyle back and forth from one that is more or less reliant on stamina recharge or ki to one that is not. You can use consumable items to increase recovery if you want, you can switch stances or switch weapons. All of these are viable strategies, as well as utilize yokai skills more often, or something else entirely, honestly, but the fact remains that the combat provides an absolutely brilliant level of skill ceiling. Here's another perfect example. At the end of each attack combo, a player can execute a ki burst if you have the right timing. A ki burst will recharge a portion of the consumed ki that was used up during those attacks, and they become absolutely essential at high level play. Not only that, but a ki burst will remove area of effect patches on the ground left by bosses and various enemy types, which reduce ki regeneration for your character. So using the right combo in the right stance with the right weapon and a ki counter at the end to cleanse and recharge can be one of the most satisfying feelings I have ever had in any game. Speaking of satisfaction, Nioh 2 has it in spades. I audibly exclaimed aloud when defeating a couple of bosses already because the sense of accomplishment is so real. But alongside that comes difficulty. I would be hesitant to say that Nioh 2 is the hardest game I have ever played because that's obviously not true, but considering its format, it's definitely up there. This game is not easy, and expecting it to be easy will not be a good foundation going in. It's certainly possible and well balanced, meaning that missions so far, keep in mind I haven't finished it yet though, always seem to feel on curve and thus do not require level grinding, but possible and easy are two completely different things. Speaking of difficulty, the complexity of combat also extends to inventory management and other systems. It's not badly done, but it might be a bit overly complicated at times if you really consider all the mechanics in place. There are blessings facilitated by smaller spirits that you find around the map and then guide back to the shrine. There is an offering system which creates its own currency and allows for valuable consumables to be bought from shrines, which are basically checkpoints. There is a massive amount of gear to find with individual stats and builds for your character as a result, which is an area I have yet to fully explore and need to look at more. And then there is the actual stat page and skill tree. The skill tree has a pretty substantial web of further ability combos and bonuses for each individual weapon, further emphasizing how unique and powerful all of them really are, and the stat page allows for you to allocate into a combo of weapons and character traits that best suit your playstyle. I myself am currently going into skill, heart, and constitution with the dual blades as my primary choice, but there are so many other options and possibilities it almost becomes overwhelming, in a good way. Deciding which combos to select, when to use them, which stances to prioritize, and what stat composition best augments your own preferences can be a game within a game once it is realized how much these choices really do affect combat. I have a lot to praise, but there are also a few annoyances here and there. I found myself frustrated at times by the prevalence of archers and gun-wielding enemies. Once in a while, the length between shrines has been rather brutal to a point of feeling defeated, but half the time when that happens, I realize there was another way to approach the area, or a ladder, or something that I missed along the way, so I can't really harp on it with any true venom. Bugs and glitches seem to be minimal, and by minimal I mean I've quite literally not seen a single one as of yet, and I am sure they exist. They exist in almost every game ever made, but they are so rare it isn't even worth being concerned over, to be honest. There are moments where you think to yourself, what? How? That didn't kill me. I did not deserve to die there, as is true with any game that prioritizes reflexes or high damage combo attacks, but it became clear very quickly that my frustration at the burst counter mechanic, for example, was based on my own propensity for pressing the buttons a fraction of a second too early. There was a very memorable moment for me where it just clicked, and I went from feeling confused when one time it would work and the other times it wouldn't, to nailing the burst counters perfectly most of the time in a good number of fights. The satisfaction was palpable, and comparing Nioh 2 with other competing games, that sense of that's wrong, I shouldn't have died there, seems notably less prevalent, if that's even possible, because there is always something you can do to improve, or eke out slightly more damage, or use a different stance, or a different combo, or get every last key burst, etc, etc. Overall, Nioh 2 is amazing. It's an incredible game, and I highly recommend it. It surely isn't for everyone though. It's difficult, which means inevitably at times frustrating, and it has build as well as stat distribution complexity, which can be hard to manage for those that don't really enjoy math and playstyle adaptation. But if you can get by what few hangups may exist, it is an excellent, brilliantly polished game that will give you dozens of hours of enjoyment. I am not done yet, nor will I be for quite some time, hence, again, this being an impressions video and not a full review, but when I do finally finish, I will happily do a review and excavate all of the reasons why Nioh 2 is an absolutely amazing game. Unless the story just falls apart completely and the second half is awful compared to the first, but I really don't see that happening, at least not bad enough to affect my overall opinion. The boss fights are unique, the combat is fast yet controlled, the skill ceiling is sky high, it really is. There is build and loot complexity, satisfaction, and so much more. Nioh 2 is absolutely worth checking out. That's it for today though. This video was brought to you with hardware from Axial GT. Please support and subscribe to him with the link down below. There is also a channel Patreon to support UE in other ways, as well as Twitter, merch, other social media, etc. You get the idea, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching and have a nice night.